long. The Obama administration doesn't think they have to move rapidly on war, the biggest environmental disaster of our country's history. Al-Qaeda coming in with an underwear bomber, Acorn and massive corruption, a communist in the White House. Those things, no rush. So what does he think is important? Well, on July 20th, 2009, news of the Professor Gates arrest hits the press. 48 hours later, without, and I'm using his words, without any of the facts, President Obama, despite his staff telling him not to say anything, decides to comment during a major press conference and declare that the police acted stupidly. 48 hours a comment comes from the President of the United States, as opposed to 93 days on war. The Arizona log, they have been begging for reinforcement for 454 days. Nothing. It took President Obama 78 days to come up and file a lawsuit. Do all the paperwork, get it all done, and file the lawsuit. They announced their intentions to sue 30 days before. Got it? Took them 30 days to put it together. 78 to actually file it. 93 to read a report and to decide. Okay, back to the oil spill. 57 days to meet with the BP, right? BP oil ban. 57 days to meet, 37 days to stop all drilling in the Gulf. Now, this is interesting because they lost this in court. A court overruled this ban on June 22nd. Later that same day, within 8 hours, they did it again. They just refiled a third time today. Okay, what does this tell you? Not important. To me, these are the important things. Some of these are very important, but they don't seem, I can't figure out what his priorities are. What are his priorities? Let me get down to this one. Oakland police riots, okay? I have to tell you this story because maybe you don't know it. It's a story of, let me come show you the video. It's a story of Oscar Grant. He was being arrested. He was allegedly resisting when an officer tried to shoot him with a taser. Now, here's the guy on the ground. This officer here is the one you need to watch. He is calling for reinforcements. He says that he is going to pull out, No, I'm sorry, it was this guy. This guy. He pulls out his taser. He thinks it's his taser. He says he pulled out his gun by mistake. I have a hard time buying into that because of, there's a big difference between a taser and a gun. The guy looks like a rookie. I don't know. I don't know if this is a good cop or a bad cop. I didn't sit there and listen to the testimony. There are bad cops. The majority of cops are good. The bad ones do need to be punished. If it was murder, get him. But if it was an honest mistake, that was an honest mistake, a very bad one. You look at the video, I don't know, you see people backing up, including him saying, oh my gosh, he looks surprised. The prosecution wanted murder. He got convicted of involuntary manslaughter instead, so he's not let off. He's a cop going to prison. Bad. Protests ensued. And it didn't take long before this was happening in Oakland. Remember, Oakland, the home of Van Jones. Rioting broke out. Over 80 people were arrested, windows were smashed, cars were burned, yada, 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 the usual Lakers game. Now, I imagine there's plenty of legitimate, angry, regular citizens in the crowd. But there are also lots of ready-made signs and groups there. Remember, San Francisco and Oakland, California, home of Van Jones, his Storm organization, and the other organization that he started, the Ella Baker Center. There's also a ton of communist groups. They spread the word of a protest leading up to the verdict. The anarchist wrote this. This is Anarchist News. We are anarchists who live in the Bay. We're outraged by the murder of Oscar Grant, and we are pissed at continuing police violence and disregard of communities' health and safety. We're writing this letter to all the people who are going to be in the streets the day of the verdict. They're writing in advance. The latest edition of the Revolutionary Communist Party USA reads, "The whole damn system is guilty. We demand justice for Oscar Grant." Revolution Books writes, there are plans for a convergence in downtown Oakland on 14th and Broadway at 6 p.m. the day the verdict is announced. People need to be there and elsewhere, respond politically to the verdict. The LA Coalition for Justice for Oscar Grant is calling for people to gather at the courthouse. Remember that these are revolutionaries. These are not, this is, what did she call it? What's her name, Nancy Pelosi? Oh yeah, AstroTurf. Then you have the Ella Baker Center. This is what the Ella Baker Center said in Ella's voice. There's been a citywide call for folks to come out on the evening of the verdict at 14th and Broadway, downtown Oakland, for a rally. Speak out and open mic. Members of the Ella Baker Center team will be there in the streets that evening, so stand with the community as we call for justice. Okay. The Ella Baker Center, you need to know, is the anti-police Van Jones organization. He co-founded it with the supposed daughter of Weather Underground members John and Nancy Frappier. Diana Frappier is her name. Oddly enough, Obama's Harvard mentor and close personal friend and former Black Panther, Charles Ogletree, just got a social justice award from the Ella Baker Center. Oh, and one more thing on Ogletree, he was the professor, the attorney for Professor Gates. Remember? I don't know if he got the word to the president, if it was Ogletree, the winner of the Ella Baker Award, that actually called the president and said, yeah, you're not going to believe this, but the police acted stupidly. And wouldn't you know it, today, Michelle Obama and Charles Ogletree were together again. Clear connections. Radicals. Radical connections. And here's the problem with radicals. They mean what they say. They're not empty words. When they say revolution, they mean revolution. I was thinking about it this weekend. If I were the President of the United States, I would have infiltrated these groups with the FBI. That's what we did in the 1970s with the Weather Underground. Unfortunately, the people that we should infiltrate have infiltrated our government. They haven't infiltrated, they're in our government, they're all over our government, and maybe inside the DOJ. Now, Cass Sunstein wants to infiltrate Tea Parties and Tea Party sites. May I ask, will you do the job that John Holder should, or Eric Holder should be doing? Will you go to these websites? Will you monitor them? I don't have a big enough staff. Will you please monitor them? Will you please look for the things that they're doing so we can get the word out? Email them to becktips@foxnews.com or just look me up on Twitter and tweet anything that you find with the links. But please burn everything you find on a DVD before you send it, because they have a way of scrubbing some of these things. We need to do this because nobody else will. You can see what the priorities of the president are. I mean, he can't decide on any of these. But within hours, he can do these. He has Eric Holder set to investigate the Oakland shooting, and it didn't take much time. By the way, the verdict came in at 4:08 p.m. on July 8th. About 6:08, they made a statement of the DOJ. So that's 2 hours. 2 hours. This is the statement. The Justice Department has been closely monitoring the state's investigation and prosecution civil rights division. The U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI have an open investigation into the fatal shooting and the conclusion of the state prosecution. We will conduct an independent review of the facts and circumstances to determine whether the evidence warrants federal prosecution. Took him 2 hours to issue that. The president can say whatever he wants, but the actions of this administration, especially when it comes to radicals, speaks volumes.